Welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Karkur Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and narrative, as well as personal response to each of these chapters. We'll also be discussing how the individual chapter connects to the rest of the manga as a whole. As usual, we begin these videos with a reading of the chapter that we are currently discussing for the episode. This is chapter 117, Remnant 2. Deny the Shadow. Ichiko! What? I've made it this far. You're not going to tell me to give up now, are you? I won't. No way. I came here to save you. I don't care if you want to be executed. You're coming with me if I have to drag you. I'm rejecting all your protests. Got that? What? What? You're just going to ignore the wishes of the person you're saving? What kind of tyrannical rescue is this? Button it! I don't want any crap from the one who needs rescuing. Just go and find a nice corner where you can tremble and say stuff like, "Save me!" You haven't changed at all. As usual, you never listen to me. Why would I? All you do is worry about me. You should be worrying about yourself. Don't worry. I won't get myself killed. You may not be able to tell, but I've gotten stronger. Byakuya. Who is he? He's not related. At least not to the one you're thinking of. He's no one. Just a Ryoka. I'll dispose of him. And then, this trifling conflict will come to an end. Bleach, chapter 117, Remnant 2, Deny the Shadow. You're pretty full of yourself. You didn't attack while Ruki and I were chatting. Who do you think you're talking to? Did you think I'd attack while your guard was down? You've got a big mouth, boy. Are you okay, Hanataro? Yes, just barely. What about you? Being inside this spiritual pressure doesn't faze you. You've improved. I don't know how you regained your Soul Reaper powers, but you should have stayed in the world of the living and enjoyed a peaceful life. Coming here to lose that life that I spared was very foolish. I don't plan on losing it. I'm gonna beat you and go home. Like I said, boy. You've got a big mouth. He's gone. It's Shunpo. Flash step. A big mouth, huh? I see you, Byakuya Kuchiki. It seems you've improved. Well then, before you drown in that newfound strength of yours, I will show you the overwhelming difference in our skills. You couldn't defeat me in 1,000 years. No! Ichigo! Run! Die. It's Yoruichi. July 23rd. Sunny. I went to school to water my classmates' chrysanthemums. Every single one of them was dead. It's because Karen didn't show up. She volunteered to water them the first 2 days of summer vacation for the stupid reason that she wanted to get it over with. But when summer vacation's over, I know I'm the one who will get the blame. Oh, if only summer vacation would never end. And that is it for chapter 117 of Bleach. This was the Remnant to Deny the Shadow, I think. It look, watch it turn out to even be like not even 117. Watch it be 116. No, it's 117. Remnant 2, Deny the Shadow. I should have been more confident, honestly. Honestly, I really should have. But let me get back to the very beginning of this chapter, and we can start to discuss it. So, ba-da-ba. Zoom a little bit out so we can nice and see the art. And yeah, let's talk about what's going on narratively in this chapter, what's going on artistically, all of that. And so I really like here that typical fashion, Kubo comes in right where we left off from the previous chapter. He knows that he's coming off of a hot sort of conflict, and so he's going to deliver immediately with what's at the core of this conflict, right? Ichigo versus Byakuya, the fight we've been looking forward to, what this whole arc's been building up to, this showdown moment. And again, we have our characters on a bridge. Like, there's no other path that they could take except for one where they cross each other's paths. They have no other way to avoid this interaction. I guess Ichigo can fly. Let's be real, but nevertheless, they're set to showdown, and again, Ichigo is right. He's on the right. He's facing left, so he's moving with the momentum of the manga. However, Byakuya and the SFX are facing him down. So Byakuya's spiritual pressure, which is I think the interpreted sort of FSX here, I suppose. But Byakuya is the one that's going to keep Ichigo from progressing forward in the manga here. So it's good stuff, and I think this is a pretty good shot and reverse shot of the two of them. This is a pretty good setup of the two. I love this big, panel split in two, showing the both of them kind of against each other. And I like that the banners of the what is the Senseikyuu that are near the tower behind Ichigo, because it's like he's raised these banners in protest to save Rukia. He's rallying his small army of sorts, which is it's cute. Like I like that those banners kind of symbolically align Ichigo as being like the one with the forces that have rallied here to make their assault. Yeah, no, it's neat. As far as the chapter title goes, Remnant 2, Deny the Shadow. So if you remember, Remnant was the chapter where Kai and Shiba got brought up, right? And so the idea is that, like, I talked about, like, what Remnant could mean in that context for the chapter, though I think this chapter makes it pretty explicit that Remnant also doesn't just refers, well, I think makes it pretty explicit that Remnant refers to Kyan. There's a few things, and I'll point them out as we go, but Deny the Shadow kind of helps to reflect what's happening here, though it's pretty subtle for somebody who doesn't know what's going on. So I think a first-time reader might miss this, even though it's the title reflects that, as well as some other things. And Kubo will do this sometimes, where a title kind of only makes sense retroactively, or a title is like a hint towards something, but you really won't know until you understand a little bit fuller. I haven't been going too much into discussion of the titles, because some of them are just like, it just sounds cool, honestly. And I think you can speculate on some of them as well. But here with Remnant 2, it's very much a callback to the first Remnant. It's very important, like significant, and I think the significance can be gleaned with a fair measure of good confidence. Anyway, of course, we get the White Tower shaking, trembling, perhaps. And I like, Rukia situated behind Ichigo, and Ichigo in the foreground of that panel at the top. I think that's fantastic. And I love that, like, as Ichigo protests Rukia, as he insists upon his mission, he grows bigger in these panels. I really like that like, Ichigo's, stature and size and presence on page gets bigger and bigger. And then, of course, Rukia is struck by that. They have this little argument. It's kind of cute. I like that they stare each other down, and then Rukia feels, you know, maybe perhaps comforted in the fact that Ichigo it hasn't changed from how she understood him before, right? That he's stuck to his guns, and that now he's here to do the job of saving her. Um, and we've talked about this before too. We've talked about the kind of way in which both Rukia and Ichigo shoulder trauma and how they handle traumatic events, and essentially Ichigo is the kind of person who wants to be able to save people. He wants to be able to wield his strength in order to keep those he cares about safe, right? He wants to do things on behalf of other people. And Rukia is very much a lot of very similar in a lot of ways, where she wants to kind of shoulder all of the burden of a thing herself, right? And they're both kind of having to learn not to in their own ways. Ichigo, where he's got to learn, to be less cynical in his pursuits of everything. Like, he hasn't been wrapped too far up in things, but he's been having to learn to like trust Zangetsu with his power, right? He's had to learn, to make allies with Ganju and not just hold like this weird petty sort of fighting grudge. Um, Different things like that throughout this arc, and in a lot of ways, Rukia is sort of trying to do the same thing as Ichigo almost, where it's like she's trying to kind of take this all on herself and handle it without like making anyone else's problem, even though it means that she'll die. So like the two of them are kind of really insistent upon, let me just have it my way, right? But ostensibly, like Ichigo, I think the core difference is that Ichigo's is a passion that is motivated to help others through like connection to them, whereas Rukia's results in isolation. She isolates herself from others so that she can take on the burden of things, right? And basically Ichigo's power of connection outweighs the strength of Rukia's isolationist convictions, right? It's cute. Like, I do like that. Like, there's that interplay that Rukia would just escape to the Soul Society and be executed there. And there's somebody who doesn't care to go that far for another person wouldn't, basically make that distance up. As she takes that step back, Ichigo takes that same step forward. Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I like that. Again, over here we have both Rukia and Ichigo facing, on the right situated, facing left. Both of them are looking forward to this new future in the manga in which Ichigo has rescued Rukia, and neither of them are caught up in that kind of past, right? And we get a lot of that here. Now, notably, we have this flashback intercut where, Ichigo expresses, "Don't worry, I won't get myself killed." And we have a cut to somebody who looks somewhat similar to Ichigo, but they're not quite the same, right? Same sort of expression, or at least a little bit of it. It's a more of a toothy smile, but there's black hair there, very similar kind of nose, and facial shape, but definitely like a thing that happened at a nighttime sequence, and you see that Rukia looks a little troubled in this moment, and then we also get this kind of darker moment of her kind of maybe forcing back tears. Meanwhile, we flip over and we see through, or from the perspective of like really zoomed up on Captain Ukitake's eyes, right? And again, this is Rukia's captain. He's been Rukia's captain for some time now, and he's shocked at the sight of Ichigo. Like the way Ichigo looks, what Ichigo's doing. He asks, like, who is this person, right? To which Byakuya says, Byakuya, he expresses Ichigo's not related. At least not the one that Ukitake is thinking of. Ichigo's no one, just a Ryoka, and he's going to dispose of him. And I think this is really interesting because it speaks towards this idea, like this shadow, perhaps, over Ichigo, that he might be related to somebody else. And yeah, there's definitely, in light of Remnant being the title, and that title being the title that was used regarding Rukia killing Kai and Shiba, you can kind of extrapolate that Ichigo is somebody that they think is related to Kaien, that Rukia is remembering Kaien before she killed him, whatever that reason may be. Basically, Rukia is remembering Kaien right here. That's what's happening. And, that's like the remnant that is present. Ukitake recognizes that and starts to ask about it. He's like, whoa, like, who is this person? To which, Byakuya expresses, like, what's on his mind, that Ichigo is not related to Kai and Shiba, at least. He says, and, like, I like that, like, he's not related, at least not to the one that you're thinking of. And he's a no one, he's not important. So it's interesting, right, that Ichigo sort of gets written off, like, he might be related to somebody, but definitely not to the person that Ukitake would have in mind, and assumably Ukitake would be thinking about the same person as Rukia, because they're both in the same squadron. They both would have known about Kaien, who Rukia probably, had close ties to, probably in the same squad as well, right? So, yeah, it's a lot of little pieces that you can put together, and I think one other little piece that you might be able to connect right now as well, and this takes some remembering. Back whenever Renji saved Rukia. What am I saying? Saved? Huh. Back whenever Renji detained Rukia. Way back when, beginning into the end of the Substitution Shinigami arc, kind of right before the Soul Society arc really began. Whenever Renji and Byakuya showed up, whenever Rukia is being held back by Renji, Renji at some point during all of that expresses that Ichigo, he's like, oh, I get it, like, he looks like that guy, and it's kind of a strange, like, statement. It's not sort of connected to anything. I don't know if he says anything else on the topic. I don't know if he's like, but it's like not him or whatever. But the idea is that Ichigo resembles Kaien, who Rukia has, like, all these regrets about, right? She regrets killing him. She has some sort of connection to him that isn't just one of malice. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting that, like, both, like, this is something that Renji, who was close to Rukia, was able to recognize. This is something that Byakuya is able to recognize, and this is something that Ukitake recognizes, right? And so all of them recognize this remnant of Kai and Shiba over Ichigo, right? Like this remnant of the past, this kind of spirit that is still here in Visage alone, if not anything else. And there's speculation that, like, maybe Ichigo is Kaien resurrected, because spirits do reincarnate in this world, right? As they die in one world, they can come back in the other. I don't know that that's necessarily the case, but nevertheless, it is like, I don't know if timeline, if that works, whatever. Nevertheless, the whole point is that there's this remnant present of Kai and Shiba, and Byakuya is the one denying the shadow. Now, the other cool thing here that's happening with the title is that Byakuya also is not acknowledging Ichigo fully, and Ichigo's powers being tied to like Zangetsu and just in general, like, the black blade that he has. Perhaps you could also extrapolate that he is denying Ichigo, ergo he's denying the shadow that, is Ichigo's power. So that's kind of cool too, right? It works on levels, maybe. Nevertheless, I don't think it's spoiler to say all of that. I think that, like, with this chapter, you can really connect that, Kai and Shiba is the one that, all of them are talking about. It takes a little bit of having paid attention, especially to, like, the way that, like, the glimpses that we've gotten of Kaien, as well as, everything going on. But I think any, like, astute reader would be able to gather that is essentially the case here. And so I wanted to kind of spell it out for those of you who did not put it all together at this point yet. Yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. It's interesting, and adds a little bit of depth to Rukia that perhaps she invested in this relationship with Ichigo because it was a redemptive moment for her, right? Perhaps it gave her a second chance of sorts to have a connection that she herself perhaps severed in the past. And of course, yeah, I love this shot from below, the grandiose sort of structures of Soul Society as they loom high. But yeah, I like that Ichigo steps forward, and expresses. Of course, Ichigo completely barefoot here. I thought they're supposed to have like these sandals, but maybe Ichigo's barefoot after being patched up by old Yoruichi. And I like that Ichigo brings up this point, like, hey, you didn't attack us, and like Byakuya, he's like, come on, I have some class, he's leagues different from Zaraki, right? Um, he won't take the advantages that he can, and I like that, like they Byakuya finally like amasses and concentrates his spiritual energy forward, and his Ryatsu is able to kind of weigh down on Rukia, who is, she's having trouble walking anyway. But I like that she's asking if Hanataro's alright, and he's just barely okay. Now, if you remember, Zaraki's like malice and intent in Ryatsu did essentially make Hanataro have a seizure. So I don't know. If you want to talk about like the raw strength of one or the other, I think it's supposed to be clear that Zaraki perhaps has more Ryatsu. This is before he even took his eye patch off, right? That Hanataro had that reaction. Zaraki is definitely supposed to be like the stronger character as far as raw strength in Ryatsu goes, but Zaraki doesn't have any relationship to his Zanpakuto. Whereas maybe Byakuya isn't quite on that level, but we're being shown in this chapter that Byakuya has a lot of finesse and technique, and he's got, his Shikai, right? His Zanpakuto. It's pretty significant. And so I like that Byakuya is like making these observations. So like, as much as I was saying, like, he's denying the shadow, like he's disregarding Ichigo, he's trying to kind of keep Ichigo from realizing, his goals. He still is going to recognize the ways in which Ichigo has improved since their last encounter, right? And of course, we get this like kind of looking down upon Ichigo, this very foolish. This chapter does a really good job of, again, lining these characters, like, Ichigo fighting forward, fighting back, like, I'm going to beat you and go home, and Byakuya kind of moving forward. And I love that he overtakes Ichigo entirely by showing up behind him. He does the, surprise I'm behind you technique, which is, as you may know, the most powerful technique in Bleach is the I am secretly behind you technique. Byakuya is he's a master of this technique. He's using Shunpo. It finally gets mentioned here. Shunpo, the flash step technique. The sort of, it's not teleportation, but it's like, moving extremely fast, so fast that the eyes cannot follow. And yet Ichigo here, pretty dynamically, is able to maneuver and block Byakuya's blade. So Byakuya is going to finish Ichigo off the same way he did before, or very similar. Before, I think he slashed Ichigo across the chest, and then Shunpo behind him and stabbed him through the back. This time he was just going for the stab through the back, through probably the what is it, the soul sleep, right? The Saketsu is the boy. It's the remnant of the spirit chain. I'm trying to remember exactly what it's called, but anyway, Hakasui, something like that. Anyway, soul sleep, all of that. He's trying to kind of disable Ichigo the same way that he did before, and I like that here Ichigo is grown enough that he's able to maneuver, block it, and I like that Ichigo's like, I see you, and it's not just like I can see you as you move fast, but it's like he recognizes and he's able to actually like see Byakuya as he is, rather than them being completely, like, him being so strong is imperceptible even. The difference in their strength, and I think that's kind of neat. Here our characters reverse, right, and they reverse. It's kind of cool. Like, yes, there's this kind of reversal, but this also keys us into something pretty significant, where Byakuya is now in charge. He's now in control of the forward momentum, and the reason why is that he has decided to use his Shikai, that he's going to use Senbon right? Of course, he hits him with some anime tropes first, right? You can defeat me in 1,000 years, which, Byakuya might be, like, close to 1,000 years old. We don't know. He's definitely older than Rukia, and Rukia is like 200-ish, so, yeah. Rukia hits Ichigo with the same sort of thing that she hit Ganju with, the run, right? Implying that perhaps there is a range to this move, that after a certain distance he might be able to escape, that he couldn't just get Ichigo, like, no matter where Ichigo was. So that's kind of interesting. It's something that came up before, and we got the idea of, like, we're really trying to kind of parse what Byakuya's power does, but it's clear, like, Rukia understands, especially the stance where he shifts his blade to the side like that. Rukia immediately recognized that that is the stance that he uses to use Senbon Sakura. So she's seen him use it before. She's familiar with this power, and she understands, like, maybe its shortcomings, right? She expresses to Ichigo that he should run, not just from this fight, but I think run is in, like, get out of the range of this technique. It's something pretty subtle. Like, you could definitely interpret this as Rukia just being like, run away from this fight, but I don't see it that way at all. I see it as the same sort of thing that she said to Ganju, like, get out of the way, dodge, basically. But you don't know what you're dodging, so running and getting out of its range seems to be the trick. But yeah, now this also kind of establishes that there is a stance, there's a form to releasing one's Shikai, right? So we saw that with Renji, that he holds, Zabimaru up and then he draws his hand over it. And similarly, Byakuya, he has to hold his sword in this very particular manner, right? So they have a tell to them. There is a ritual. It's just kind of interesting that, like, we're learning the rules of the power system. Nobody ever spelled out, like, okay, and now to use your transform Shikai, you have to do this and this and this. Like, it just gets shown to you, and I think it's effective that we can pick up on that language, that system visually. Again, I think Bleach's power systems often get kind of overlooked. They often aren't given maybe the praise that they deserve. A lot of people really praise a lot of power systems that are exposited to them, because at that point, anybody can understand it, so you don't have to really read. But seeing as I enjoy manga because it is a visual medium, I like whenever those visuals are used towards narrative purpose, and so that, like, the visuals can not just be an aesthetic rendering, but can tell their own story, and kind of become an exposition of their own. That's whenever it's working really well. I don't want just a picture book depicting what I would understand from dialogue alone. I want the visuals to have their own sort of story that's happening and unfolding in tandem, and that I need to be as literate in the, like, realm of language as I do in the visual language of the thing. Yeah, and I feel like a lot of people that maybe give Bleach's systems a hard time, or call them inconsistent, that comes up a lot, are people that maybe aren't really paying that much attention, or aren't as literate in the visual language of Bleach. Anyway, I do love that Yoruichi does show up here. She's got this kind of rope or tape or whatever it may be, but she's as usual. Ichigo brought up, you've got these gizmos, right? You've got these things, these artifacts, and this may be one other of them, as she instantaneously wraps his Zanpakuto from top to bottom, perhaps sealing it, perhaps keeping it from releasing. And of course, everyone here, maybe even Hanataro, but definitely Byakuya and Ukitake, recognize that it is Yoruichi Ch.117. And she is just looking really great here. Like, just absolutely killer. This very serious expression. I really love the kind of like, I would say, ornamentation, like the hairband that is there. I think that's really cool. Like the cord that's on, like tied into it with a cloth. It's a good look. I think that like the way that her coat, which is, we have this in black and white. It's an orange. It's like an orange look in the anime, and whenever we get a color page. But even interpreting it as white, I like the way that it breaks out the blacks of her outfit. In general, like, yeah, it's just fantastic character design and a really good moment whenever she shows up to bring this battle to a halt. Because, let's be real, Ichigo facing down two captains, even if only Byakuya was going to face him, we already see earlier, like if we go a few pages back, we don't even have to go that far back. You can see here, Ichigo's stomach, he's still bleeding out from his injuries with, you can see that there too. That his injuries from the fight with Zaraki haven't fully healed. We can still see his Hakusho is open and his bandages are bloody still. So, chances are Byakuya had it on the money. Ichigo would not defeat him that day. But with Yoruichi here, maybe a different story. I do like this little interlude that Karen volunteered to water these flowers to get it done with, and then she didn't even show up. And now this other person has to kind of deal with the fallout of that. Just kind of dismally holding her watering can, and the water's just spilling out. It's a little sad, but still, is what it is. That's it for this chapter. I mean, all in all, I like this chapter a lot. I think it's got a lot of like really strong visuals. I like that, like the second that Byakuya kind of corners the momentum on the page, we've got Yoruichi flashing in to stop all of that, and then even she's aligned in such a way that she is, facing left, and she is essentially coming and taking control of the situation. So maybe a little bit of the mystery around Yoruichi might get cleared up. But I love this moment where, Ichigo is, able to block the strike that essentially felled him just 60 chapters ago, thereabouts. I like this shot. I like that we get this shot of, it's like the two panels, but Byakuya being there and then immediately just being gone as he steps behind Ichigo. That's a cool shot. All in all, solid chapter. I like the back and forth. The stuff with Kyan I think is really neat. The few moments that we do get really kind of speak towards this trauma that Rukia has, right? This remnant that is still casting a shadow over her heart, and we get a little bit of all of that expressed and explored. Perhaps not fully exposited and spelled out to us, but shown to us in enough of a way that we could connect those dots. So all in all, I do think this is a pretty exciting chapter, especially in the ways that it takes a few different turns. The momentum gets upset in different ways that I think are interesting. We have a little bit of a clash between our characters, and before things can advance too far in one direction, it gets completely swiped up in another. You get to wonder, like, Ichigo was able to fly here, but Yoruichi is here already, so you have to think, like, how did she get here? Is she just that capable? Perhaps so. Anyway, that's it for the discussion of this. Let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about how this connects to the rest of the manga. And, there isn't a ton here. We already talked about the stuff with Kyan. Ignoring the wishes of the person they're saving, obviously. That's something that Ichigo is pretty keen on. like, worry about yourself, don't just worry about me. Like, the whole I won't get myself killed flashbacks to Cayenne, of course, is pretty telling. That Rukia has been through this sort of scenario before, where she's grown close to somebody who did not have the strength, who through the machinations of Aizen was killed, right? And in the very same way in this chapter, the machinations of Aizen is what's essentially threatening Ichigo here too. So it's interesting how Aizen has been a consistent antagonistic force in Rukia's life without her even knowing it. Um, he's the one that ultimately, I think, decided even that she was going to be the one sent to Karakura, and it's probably because he figured that Urahara would hide the Hogikyo inside of her, while she was there. Um, there's that whole aspect. Of course, Urahara, Yukitake, you could sort of piece together. If like that was the one thing that I didn't mention, I was kind of thinking about how much to talk about during the analysis for this video. But one thing I didn't mention is that obviously this also soft confirms that the moment that Rukia was remembering during Grand Fisher was, of course, a moment with Ukitake talking about Cayenne. That the trauma of Ichigo losing his mother is tied to the trauma of Rukia being powerless to save Cayenne. Both of those dealing with a hollow attack, but both of those also are mirrored in that they were essentially both things that only could have happened because of the scheming of a greater power. Aizen in the case of Cayenne, and in the case of Masaki, it was both Aizen as well as, because Aizen made white, right? As well as Yuhapak, right? Who took back the powers of the various Quincy. So yeah, pretty devastating. I like that mirroring though. I like that, like the idea of remnant, the idea of denying the shadow, and of course Yuhabak's powers of the Quincy being tied to shadow. Interestingly enough, deny the shadow. If he's denying Ichigo, then perhaps he's denying Zangetsu's powers. So then he's perhaps denying Yuhabak's influence or powers, maybe even. Yeah, otherwise, it makes me uncomfortable how much Byakuya talks about Ichigo's mouth. Um, I of course, I think it's kind of neat that Yoruichi, she wraps up Senbon so it can't divide itself into all the shards, the petals, right? Though I think the petals are just an optical illusion, technically. It's weird, because I think like the idea is that the sword becomes like a billion pieces that he can still control remotely, and that it creates the optical illusion of petals. But then the anime especially, but the manga to a degree, just shorthands like the petals are the thing that are cutting you. I don't think it literally becomes petals. I think the petals are meant to be like an optical kind of illusion of the light that glints off of all of these shards. But I could be wrong. I could be misremembering that. I like that the second that Shunpo gets mentioned, Yoruichi shows up and almost certainly uses Shunpo or some technique of flash step to stop Byakuya. So we get really shown here, kind of sneakily in a way, not just that Byakuya is capable of Shunpo, but that Yoruichi is the master of it and is even more capable than he is, which is pretty cute. Yoruichi, of course, has to constantly show up, little Kuchiki boy, because of course. And I love that this is like really the first time that we see like some amount of shock or startlement from Byakuya too. That it's Yoruichi's arrival that unnerves him. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. This is good manga. I love Bleach. That's all I got for this one, folks. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thanks for following along. Please give it a like if you've gotten this far. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you've been watching all of these, go ahead and subscribe. I don't release the videos that regularly. They're supposed to come out, every weekday, but sometimes they don't. So, if you ever miss one, you'll know if you missed it, and you'll know if I ever uploaded in a regular schedule. I know just the other week, I was having issues with rendering where it crashed while rendering, and I had to spend more time rendering, but I was able to get the video out, an hour late one day, and the next day, over the weekend, I had it just postponed to the next day, I believe. So, you know, subscribe to the channel. You'll know whenever the videos are out. They just come out. You can also follow me on Twitter. I try to make a post whenever I have any sort of issue. Um, I used to make a post whenever I would have a new episode upload, but I kind of stepped back from that because I'm like, well, if you're subscribed, you're subscribed, I'm going to try to use the Twitter space more for like special things or mentions, whatever. But hey, I'll post about episodes I'm excited about too. Nevertheless, really good stuff coming up in the series, so thank you so much for watching. And if you'd like to support the channel another way, you can always support via Patreon. The link is in the description for the video. At this point, at the very end of the video, this is always where I show the names of my current patrons. Thank you so much for your support. It really does mean the world to me, and it does help out the channel. So yeah, looking forward to actually using the money that I have been saving from this to put towards a pretty good microphone that should up our audio quality considerably. So yeah, look forward to that. Otherwise, that's it for this one, folks. This has been Carker Gold, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.